Hello everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Before I forget, I'm doing it on this side again. You can see my hand is kind of phased through. We have a brand new setup in our room. Mel and I moved a bunch of things around so you don't have the big hulking friggin' thing right here where my mouth is. And also, while I'm looking at my computer, my microphone is right here, so you won't hear me doing this as often anymore. It should sound a lot better, although it's a little bit low. We're also messing with a mixer that we've had for months and that I've just never used. So we're gonna do the videos right here on this side again, because it's better if I'm over here because it leaves room for the questions. And now that there's not this friggin' invisible wall of my thing, although there is this invisible wall right here, but that looks fine because what do you care, right? And also my glasses don't phase through the green screen as much anymore, which is way better. So I am doing this live on Twitch as per usual. Again, have the notifications turned off like we usually have. We just dipped below 1,000 subs right before I got to this. We're at 999. So we're going to be trying to keep that up over 1,000. It's going to be very tough, but with patch 3.3 coming June 7th, I have faith that we're going to probably have a pretty awesome stream day on that day. So I'll be announcing that again next week, but remember June 7th is a super stream. Servers go live. I will get everything in the trailers done, except for Deep Dungeon, which won't be available till probably early to mid-July since it's 3.35. So on top of that, if you haven't seen the trailer, haven't checked out the website yet, I made a video of my reaction to it. You can also just go straight to the Lodestone and go to the webpage through there, but I highly recommend checking out this trailer because this is probably the best Heavensward trailer they've put out since Heavensward's actual launch. I went back and I looked at the 3.1 and 3.2 trailers, and I was like, you know, the 3.2 trailer was really boring now that I look back at it. I mean, you had Alexander, which was really exciting, but it was a really boring trailer for 3.2 in my opinion. 3.3's trailer, you're excited from the beginning to the very end. So I'm looking forward to 3.3, and the Make It Rain campaign is going on until June 10th. I will have my Fenrir mount very soon. So I'm looking forward to doing that as well. But anyway, we got some questions to get through. We're going to do what we've been doing the last few weeks. We have a few questions over on the forums, and then I do like 2 or 3 questions from the live stream itself. So let's get started. Alright, so we have our first question. Hey, Mr. Haps, have some more deviled eggs. As if I don't have enough food on my character as is. One can never have enough. You know, like I said, I love deviled eggs, like actual deviled eggs. One of my favorite, like, hors d'oeuvres to snack on. Okay, maybe Sly could be on a different DC character, maybe Robin. That's right, I forgot about that question last week. I was Batman, right? Nah, Sly's not my Robin. I wouldn't fucking rely on him to be my Robin. Anyway, Dragoons fly and so do Robins. Robin is the sidekick to Batman, so is Sly the ergo Robin. What do you think? Oh, and if Hello Kitty beats out Batman. Alright, I'm just gonna say it right now. You did the same thing last week. There's no question in your post. So, from now on, if you don't have an actual question, I'm not going to read it on the forums. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm going to put that out there to everyone, guys. You need to have an actual question. What do you think of me calling you Batman and calling Sly Robin? Does not justify a question. So I didn't read this ahead of time because I'm doing it live over on Twitch. But from now on, I'm going to, I'm specifically you. I know who you are. I can see who's posting it, and I will remember that. So, just keep that in mind, that I will remember your name if you do that, and I will read your question before actually reading it on the thing. I'm going to leave this in, though, because I want you to know that I want actual questions on Mondays to Mrhappy, not, I think you're Batman and Sly's Robin, what do you think? So, on that note, let's move on to the next question. Alright, now let's hope this is a real question. In fact, there's 2 real questions in this one. Hey Haps, 2 questions if you have time. I think after that last one, I definitely have time for an extra question. 1, I just listened to your live letter overview and thoughts. I'm particularly interested in the part about dragon skin maps and the Aquapolis. Me as a warrior with a healer buddy always save up about 3 or 4 dragon skin maps and then do all of ours together once a week. With our chocobos, we can do maps fairly easily. Will the Aquapolis instances allow for chocobos to enter? Alright, I'm going to tell you this in the easiest way possible. Nothing allows you to enter anything with your chocobo. So I'm just going to go ahead and say no. We have no confirmation on that because it's never been commented on. But chocobos never do shit, so no. But with a warrior and a healer, I mean, it's feasible that you could finish the Aquapolis with that. It would just take a while. Like, you have an hour to finish 7 floors, and you have to even hope you get to the 7th floor. I can imagine warrior white mage would have no problem, but you'd be way better off bringing a couple of DPS friends. Just that kind of throws a wrench in the way that you've been doing things up to this point. But no, there's no way they let your chocobos go in there with you. I don't see that happening. They're not allowed in any instances, pretty much. So that'll apply to everything in the future, whatnot. Would probably try to get a third person that makes. I think you could do it with warrior, white mage, warrior, scholar, warrior, anything, just because you're not gonna die, and the enemies, they have a lot of health. I'm sure you know that from doing dragon skin maps, but it's designed for 4 people. I'm doing it with 2, and I imagine that if you were doing all 7 floors of the Aquapolis, it would realistically only take about 20 minutes. So I think you'd still be okay, but you'd be spending a lot more time on that 1 day per week doing your dragon skin maps. I think you should give it a try once, see how it goes, and then determine what you need to do. But at least do 1 Aquapolis to see what it's like before you determine if you want to grab that 3rd person in there. 2, I think I might want to buy a free company house. Okay, I'm going to make sure I remember that. Free company house when 3.3 patch comes. If you have time, can you also explain the difference between individual and free company? So the okay, let me actually read the bolded part. Does the house just belong to the free company leader and he can keep it even if you leave the free company? Or is the house and the free company forever attached? The house and the free company are forever attached. If you're buying it in the name of a free company, that free company is what owns it. Yes, the person who actually made the purchase is in charge of it, but if that free company, that free company can't be disbanded as long as the house is gone, but if nobody uses the house will go all the same. But it is tied to the free company. That's why you can own a free company house and an individual house, because it belongs to the free company itself. Do you need to buy it with free company deposited money? No, you don't, but when you register the purchase, it's going to ask you whether or not it's an individual sale or it's a free company sale. It will ask you that. It will clarify. So that's really the thing. You could own one of each. I know plenty of people who are in Elysium who own like a house on their main as well. It's just that there is a difference. It's not just an individual house that belongs to the free, the free company is using just because they can. It is tied to the free company. So with that in mind, hopefully that answered both your questions pretty well. Let's move on to the next one. I just realized before even doing the second one, you could hear Overwatch very slightly in the background because we were playing that just before I did this recording. But that's fine. It's not like that gives me trouble on YouTube or anything. I just think it's funny. So anyway, next question. Ahab, question for week 94. I know you don't like this kind of question. I'm going to tell you right, that's not a good thing to lead with. That's not a good thing to lead with. But I want your take. So I have 50 Titanite slabs. I want the dancer in 14, but I don't know if I could work the same way it did in 11. Oh, okay, so you didn't use, there's like no punctuation, so your question confused the ever-loving hell out of me. Everything is a capital letter except for the word in? Why does everything have a capital letter except for the word in? The I in. That's bothering me. Yeah, punctuation would have definitely helped me understand this question a little bit better. Do you think so if it was added in 14, Dancer would almost definitely have to be relegated to work very differently. Some people want a melee support in the game, or they want Bard to be more supporty. The thing is, if there ever is a support in this game, it's gonna have to double as a DPS. Either that, or the game needs to be entirely rebalanced around the ideas of having a support. They need to incorporate 3 supports at the same time. They can't just add 1 support and then say, oh, by the way, there's a support role now, because what the hell? That means an entire expansion would have to be dedicated to releasing support jobs, which I don't think many people would be very excited for. As cool as the idea sounds, nobody would be excited for that. Either that or they need to incorporate like 5 jobs. So that's why I'm, first of all, not a fan of the idea of adding support into the game, because it would basically encompass all of the development team's resources into just incorporating that new role, and then every job would have to be that role when they incorporate it. And so here's the thing. There could be no job that's more support than DPS, because Dancer would basically have to be either a full-blown melee healer, which is a very strange thing to consider. How they target people with their dances, mouse over macro is probably very popular, but then they'd constantly have to be dropping target from the enemy that they're actually fighting, so that's kind of awkward. Or all their dances need to be AoE, or needs to provide buffs. So if Dancer does happen, it's absolutely going to be incredibly different from Final Fantasy XI. There's no way it will work the same as 11, just because the game, the way the games function are entirely different. They wouldn't work exactly the same as 11. So no, it absolutely would not work the same. It would have to be incredibly different in order to work in 14. On that note, next question, and this person did not start their question with "you will not like this question." Oh man. So now a first-time poster, so no bonus of your choosing. Anyway, my question this week is simple. Do you think Square Enix will ever implement a feature where you can chat with people who are waiting to accept a duty in the Duty Finder? So here's the thing. So they're incorporating a way to chat with people across server. That's going to be part of the cross-server party finder. That's not the raid finder. This is not to be confused with the raid finder. The raid finder is literally just, here's the latest Savage raids. That's what you can do in the raid finder. And then you queue in like it's the duty finder with all your special conditions. The cross-server party finder is literally like, okay, here's a party finder, exactly the same, like everyone's looking for instances, you know, oh, I want to do my dungeon, I want to do the newest primal, I want to do whatever. And it would only work for instances, obviously, but it would just be another means of kind of communicating with people and organizing content better than the raid finder is. What's it called? So, what was I trying to say? I got distracted by the Twitch chat because there's something I want to say. It would just... I don't see why they couldn't, because the reason why they're holding back the cross-server party finder for 3.5 is to make sure you can chat across servers. So if that's the case, then I don't understand why they couldn't have like a chat room for you to hang out in while you're using the duty finder. I don't see why that wouldn't be possible if they're already working on cross-server chat support. I'm going to say, yeah, I think it's a good idea. Just literally, if you're in the duty finder, it puts you in a chat room that you can open up in a window, and that's it. And you just chill, and you're like, yeah, waiting on the duty finder or whatever, looking for whatever. And then, yeah, I mean, you're going to have the few abuse cases, whatever. It's going to happen. People, but of course, RMT, you're going to find a way to abuse that. It's going to happen, but you can't do it just because that's going to happen. I'm okay with this. This is a good way to pass the time. It gives people a little bit more of an opportunity to socialize, which I'm always for in an MMO, when they're waiting for their duty in the duty finder. All right, next question. So a few questions for you. Didn't even say hello? Come on, man, sad face. You're using me for information. I'm sad, dude. One, how you doing? Okay, now you ask me how I'm doing. I'm doing alright, man. I'm doing alright. How you doing? How the fuck are you doing, bro? Come on, man. How you doing? How you doing? Alright. Let's move on to the second question. So I think I've asked you this question before, like over a year ago. Well, alright. That's good spacing. But I really don't remember your answer. So I have an idea for a new... Man, you guys love throwing these at me. I feel like more often than not, I've been saying that I don't have a good answer to those types of things being posted on the forums. And I feel like since saying that, more people are doing it. But hear me out first. That's what he says. Hear me out first. Because he knows that I don't want to do this. Is there any sort of lore? I mean, you can write anything into anything. So let's say there's a healer that inflicts damage to heal party members. I mean, that's what I wanted for Geomancer. I said Geomancer should probably be a healer that heals by dealing damage. The problem with that is you now have to basically you have to give it enough healing output balanced with its damage output. And you also still need to give it dedicated healing. So it's a very, very rough spot. And if they did this, man, the outcry on the forums would be so high. Healers aren't supposed to DPS. Healers aren't supposed to DPS. Why do you make a healer that has to DPS? And it's like, I don't know, dude. That's why you bring a Geo. That's why you would bring a Geo. You would bring a Geo to friggin' do that. I'd be like it. But literally, it doesn't matter what we think. But like I said, is there any sort of lore that can make that happen? They can write whatever they want. I mean, literally, it's not like there needs to be pre-existing lore. They could just make up whatever they want. It's a fantasy world, you know what I mean? They could, if they wanted to, they could make it so that Sid loves to friggin' fiddle with buttholes. Like, they could write it in. Maybe Sid's got a butthole fetish. They could write that in if they wanted. It's a fantasy realm. So, I mean, yeah, if there's lore, sure, they'll write it in. There you go. That's it. Done. Donezo. And now for the other question we have here. I had to work in the morning of the live letter. I did watch your overview. Why did you miss the most important of the live letter? The part about Yoshi P. They didn't talk about that at all. So the one thing that was mentioned, and the reason why I didn't highlight it in the overview video, is I'm the one who typed out that live letter overview document. I'm the one who typed it out. The cooldowns did not reset when he died to Nidhogg. People went back and watched and confirmed they did not reset. Still wishful thinking, so it wasn't actually there. That's why I didn't mention it in the overview video. And lastly, as a new subscriber, I want to know when are the A6, A7 Savage guides, when I can get back in. Here's the thing, I actually finished the A6 Savage guide, got nerfed. And I don't want to release the A7 Savage guide, which I also have already written out and partially recorded, until after I finish the A6 one. But I haven't been back in A6 in like a month and a half, because after PAX East, I didn't have a raid group because I wasn't able to raid for 2 weeks. So rightfully so, raid group was like, okay, you can't raid for 2 weeks, let's bring someone else. And I was like, no, you should keep that guy. So yeah, I mean that's the bottom line. That's why it hasn't been released, because I haven't gotten back into A6 Savage to record the nerfed version, and I don't want to release A7 Savage without releasing A6 Savage, because I don't know, just it doesn't seem right to me. All right, next one. Hello, Happy, and hello, ladies and gentlemen watching this either live or on YouTube. Look, he's saying hi to everyone. I have returned for another question, and this time I'm going to give you nothing but a joke. Okay, but he does have a question. He has confirmed right under here, I do have a question, bud. Why do other primals not invite Odin to their slumber parties? They don't want to sleep near him. That is an old joke, sir. I do not give you any kudos for that old joke. I was hoping for something original, but you just make me sad. That's it. Okay, on to my question. So since people like posting stuff here about ideas for 14, I'm wondering if you could do a live chat on a one-on-one with people, or have them put their idea in a forum like Mondays with Mr. Happy, can hear their ideas and give them a quick thought on it or something like that. I don't know. I mean, people just do that here. Literally, people just do that here. Even though I tell people it's not a good question to post, because I'm literally just going to say, sure, whatever, why not? I mean, I don't think I need to add anything, because even when I say that, people still do it here. Second question. This was just a random thing I was thinking about. What if the Warriors of Darkness are in fact bacon? Man, these are some quality questions we have this week. I think this is probably the highest. Maybe I should just go to the fucking Twitch chat at this point. We have bad jokes and bacon. I guess the bacon's alright. I guess I'll say the bacon's alright. Third question. When do you think we will see Omega? He will probably be the primary antagonist of 4.0. That's going to be my guess. He's going to be the primary antagonist of the 4.0 patch series, and we'll get a Minstrel's Ballad version of him probably in 4.1. I know that sounds really weird, because Alamigo is literally as far away from Cartno as you can get on the continent. But I have a feeling that that's when we're gonna see him. I liked Ethys's theory that Ilberd in some ways probably going to try to resurrect Omega in an attempt to free Alamigo, but we're gonna have to stop his ass because he's an idiot. So I have a feeling that we're gonna get that. Oh, do you think we'll go to Cartno first? No, I don't think we'll ever go to Cartno as a zone. As much as I would love to, I actually would love to go to Cartno and West Shroud and all the other zones that we haven't got to experience yet. I have a feeling that. Keep in mind that if we do go to Cartno, it's not going to be on the parts that the PvP map are, although they could very easily do that, and then just, they don't even have to make a map, although they would probably make it so we have to fly in Cartno, which would be a very, very different story. So, I have a feeling that we're not going to be able to go to Cartno, and it's just going to be sort of reference in the story, or maybe an instance with him, but not like a full-blown zone. I just have a feeling we won't be going there as a full-blown zone. Damn, you have a lot of questions. And this better not be another bacon question. If I was to summon you as a... Damn, did you just weaved in, like, joke questions in between? Fourth, if I was to summon you as a primal, how would you like to be summoned, and what would you do? Just... I don't want to be summoned as a primal. That shit sucks, dude. Okay, I'm here, I'm physical, and if anyone kills me, I'm just gonna fade back into nothing. Fuck it, Bay life. No! This is why when people ask me, what Final Fantasy game universe would you want to live in? I go, none of them. Those worlds all suck. Those are horrible lives to live. Like, people are like, I would go to Final Fantasy VII and fight Sephiroth. It's like, no, you wouldn't. You're not Cloud. No, you wouldn't. You would die. A horrible death is what would happen if you went to the Final Fantasy VII world. And then, let's see, final question. Hypothetically speaking, if two trains, train A and train B, simultaneously depart from station A and B, station A and B are two... Oh, no, I'm not doing... Nope, we're not doing that. Nope. Nope. What's the answer? I don't care. The answer is D. The answer is always D. And that's what you're gonna get. Anyway, moving on to the next question. Alright. Let's see if we can get another real question in here. Hey, Ashen One. This isn't off to a good start. Enjoy your very own Undead Legion. Use it wisely. So I make a point of never watching guides or looking things up about games, especially games like Dark Souls, but I miss my buddy Gerard, and I can't find him. Friggin' Patches tried to get me to give the okay to gank him, and after I said there's no sign of Gerard, dead or alive, hollow or unhollow. Do you know how you can you give... Is Gerard the fucking little dude that dies, like, after he does the 5 unhollowings? Because I don't remember the names of the characters in Dark Souls. I remember Patches, and that's it. Patches and fucking Gwyn and Gwendolyn and, dude, friggin' something. I don't know. I don't remember the names of anything but the bosses, so. Unless that's the dude that does your unhollowing, I have no idea who that is. And the only way I know to get him is right after you beat friggin', what's his name? The dude, the second boss of the game, friggin' the dude with the thing and the boom. Oh, I've never even encountered Gray Rat. I've literally never encountered Gray Rat. now that people are mentioning it, I've literally never encountered that character in my Dark Souls playthrough. So if I have, then he's like, I killed him instantly, because I have no recollection of Gray Rat's story. Oh man. So yeah, I have no idea. What music do you like? I like house music. I like rap. I like R&B. I like everything, pretty much. I pretty much do it on a song-to-song basis. If the song sounds like shit, like dubstep. Some dubstep I like, but more often than not, it's dubstep I end up not liking. It's pretty much like, you know, I just listen to whatever. Like, fuck it, I just listen to Eminem. Some lama dama lama, you assume I'm a human. What I gotta do to get it through the superhuman, innovative, and I made a rubber so that anything you say is ricocheting off of me a second to you. You know, like I just like to listen to Eminem real quick. All right. All right, now that I got that one out of the way, what's the next question? Hey, Haps, have a casually ethical tank/player type question for the day. You have two types of tanks. The pro hotshot tank who pulls loads too much of monsters because he only knows it that way, then dies, blames it on the healer party, and leaves. And the tank who might be squishy but progresses slowly through the dungeons and beats the last boss. Which one are you supporting? The second one, but I would prefer a tank that knows their limits. Here's the thing. The tank who might be squishy, you have to determine why the tank is squishy. Because if he's squishy because he's literally using no cooldowns, I don't support that. If he's squishy because he's under geared, sure, you can't avoid that. He's just trying to do the dungeon to get gear in the first place. If he's squishy because he forgot to wear a shield, I'm not going to support that. If he's squishy because he turned off tank stance and forgot to turn it back on, don't support that. If he's squishy, just whatever, like he doesn't know what to do, he's under geared is really like, if you're someone who doesn't understand the job you're playing, I'm all for you learning it, as long as you're willing to learn it. If I go through a whole dungeon, I see a paladin never once use Rampart, Sentinel, Sheltron, anything, I'm gonna be like, hey man, is there a reason why you're not using your cooldowns? And a lot of the times I actually get a response to that, and it's usually, I don't need them right now. It's like, but you could be using them. You didn't need it the whole time. You could have just used them so you could, you know, prevent more damage, and then that offers the party a little bit more of an opportunity. Hey, focus. There we go. So it's a mix. I want a tank that is aware of where their skill level lies, but also willing to improve. If a tank is super skilled, they go through the whole dungeon, they do the big pulls, they know exactly what it is that they need to do, but they don't pay attention. Like, for example, sometimes you have a tank that pulls everything, but then you have a friggin' I-145 ninja and an I-150 bard, and it's like, we are not going to kill this very fast. Then you got to kind of pay attention to what your party composition is. If you have the I-230 Black Mage and the I-240 Summoner, then go fucking ham sandwich, because that shit better die. That shit better die. You know what I'm saying? So it's a mix somewhere in between, but I would rather do a dungeon slowly and get it done, as opposed to pull, wipe, pull, wipe, pull, wipe, pull, wipe, pull, wipe, pull, wipe, pull, wipe. Definitely don't want to deal with that. Alright, next question. Hey, Hap, should be a quick and simple question. Do you think that Gladiator Paladin's Traded Flash will ever become an actual attack with potency? Probably not. I've considered that. Give it like 10 potency. Give it like next to nothing in actual potency, but just give it something so that people stop asking. Like, I'm all for just give it 10 potency, but then people go, oh, it's only 10 potency, but then you have Unleash, which is like, I don't even know how much Unleash or Overpower are off the top of my head. I mean, they don't need it. Would it be nice to deal more damage? Absolutely. Is it necessary? By no means. What's it called? Much easier. I don't think it's any easier for AoE. It's easier to kill the enemies faster in AoE tanking scenarios. Paladin, listen, I love Paladin in terms of its AoE tanking, just because it just never dies. They just don't kill it faster. That's really the only thing. They get Circle of Scorn, and you pretty much need to apply Goring Blade. You literally just Goring Blade you, Goring Blade you, Goring Blade you. That's your AoE. Like, that's all you're gonna be able to do. And I'm fine with that. I mean, as long as the Paladin's playing it properly, I don't need them to kill the AoE faster. I'll just kill it faster for them. Like, I'll pop an extra cooldown, which I sometimes just literally don't do, because I'm like, I don't need this cooldown. We got a Black Mage blowing up. It's not gonna be worth it. But I'll just pop an extra cooldown, whatever, right? Like, they don't really need... It's not something they need. That's not going to be what makes people go, oh yeah, now I want a Paladin. No, that's not at all. It all comes down to the bosses, and do they deal physical damage? Do they have their magic damage? Like, it comes down to balancing the incoming damage, not the amount of damage Flash does versus Overpower and Unleash. I don't think that's going to do any favors for Paladin at all, other than speed up ever so slightly your dungeon speed. Alright, next question. Hey, Haps, first time asking? A bit late, so I have some donuts. More donuts? So my question is about Final Fantasy VI. I know it's your favorite Final Fantasy, and after I finished it yesterday, I've been thinking back over it and would really like to know what it is that makes it your favorite Final Fantasy. I myself didn't like it that much, so I've been wondering since what makes other people like it that much, and getting that from someone. Closer's favorite Final Fantasy might help me understand it. So first of all, keep in mind, favorite Final Fantasy does not mean best Final Fantasy. Everyone kind of takes their own experiences out of Final Fantasy games. A lot of people very much love their the first Final Fantasy game they've ever played. For a lot of people, that very quickly becomes their favorite. So I have a few reasons. First of all, I'm talking about the original version of Final Fantasy. I'm sorry, let me rephrase. The Super Nintendo version, Final Fantasy III for us, and then also the anthology version on the PlayStation 1. So first things first, it was the last Final Fantasy until Final Fantasy X, where I could stand looking at the character models. Final Fantasy VII, the character models look awful because it was that awkward transition where they started trying to do shit in 3D. In combat, they look okay, but like they have horse hooves. Literally, they're horses. I can't take it. Final Fantasy VIII was very grainy, although the cutscenes were, of course, way better than Final Fantasy VII. It's a huge step up. Final Fantasy IX was the pinnacle of the PlayStation 1's graphics, but still, it wasn't nearly as appealing to me as the graphics that came out of the SNES version and the PlayStation 1 version. So Final Fantasy X was the next one I enjoyed looking at, and I thought was an actually beautiful Final Fantasy game. It wasn't perfect, but it was the next one after 6. So the graphics and how they aged very well. The new one on Steam, the mobile version of 6, I can't look at it. It hurts my eyes to see why. Like, that did not need an update. The graphics on that did not need an update, so I don't know why they did it. And then you have the actual story. So Final Fantasy VI moved away from like having one central character and kind of following their story. Everyone kind of had their own reasons and their own stories that you could explore. Shadow, if you actually get into his story, has a phenomenally depressing story. And as well as the interactions between the characters, the options you have. Not everything is mandatory. There's a lot of things for you to find and figure out. It felt like a much more believable world. Like, you don't have to see everything in this world to beat the guy at the end, but there's a lot more to see if you take the time out of it, and a lot of little intricacies. The leveling system was a lot more tolerable. It wasn't super grind heavy. It was really more about forwarding the story, and if anything, having patience. I didn't really level at all in Final Fantasy VI until like way later in the game. Once you get a few espers, you can really abuse the espers to increase your stats a lot more if you wait longer. So it's just, there's a lot of little things that kind of build up to it. Kefka is, of course, one of my favorite villains. He's batshit crazy. He's basically, to me, the Joker of Final Fantasy, and Joker is, of course, a lot of people's favorite DC villain, or even comic book villain, or even comic book character overall. So there's a lot that goes into why I like Final Fantasy VI, but by no means is that the same experience everyone gets. Sometimes people want a more centralized story. They want something that isn't as open-ended as Final Fantasy VI is. They want a leveling system that's a little bit more rewarding early on, before they get the Esper, something that's a little clearer. And sometimes people just don't like Kefka. You know, he's not as interesting to some people as much as I love the character, especially his rendition in Dissidia, which I thought was phenomenally done. It's just far more interesting to me that way. And that's why Final Fantasy VI is kind of just stuck out as the pinnacle, even though it was maybe the 5th Final Fantasy game I played. I think I played 8, 7, 9, 5, 6 in that order. I think it was the 5th Final Fantasy game I played, and then it was like 10, 1, and then I did play 2, 3, and 4 like in the past couple of years even. So it's I have a few reasons, but it's not the same for everyone, and you really kind of got to dig deep to get those reasons. You got to really be paying attention and taking in a lot of what makes the game so good for me. All right, on that note, next question, and I can already see that there's a TLDR, so let's see how long of a question it is, because after some of the questions we had earlier, I would feel bad maybe not reading this one. Good day to you, Mr. Happy. First time askers who have a free Yoshi P minion. Well, man, I hope we get that for the Rising this year. We have the Rising in 3 months. I'm curious to see what it's going to be. So I have a problem. TLDR, I transferred too much. Man, this is going to be now I really want to read it, because I transfer too much is not a question. Unless you have your... No, this isn't a TLDR. This is like this is like 2 paragraphs. This is nothing compared to what some other people send my way, dude. Alright, so I've been playing the game since the days of the PS3 beta. Ah, the memories. Some memories are better left forgotten. And ever since I left my very first free company to pursue things like raiding, role-playing, and having a solid core of friends that do lots of in-game stuff, I always seem to come up short. I've transferred a total of 7 times. That's not as bad as some people I know, dude. And I still haven't found out what I'm looking for. And I know that transferring like this is bad for my wallet. I mean, games are bad for your wallet because you just keep spending. I'm currently on Behemoth and heeding Sly's advice. Use your words, people. Use your goddamn words. Shout out to Sly. But I always seem to get ignored. Or I find a group that isn't looking for the current job I main, or they don't raid, hang out, log in nearly as much. So it looks like you're looking for literally the perfect raid group. You will never find this. Ultimately, your perfect raid group will be, seems like, prioritize people you get along with. Because here's the thing, as soon as you jump into the world of raiding, you almost need to be ready to transfer a lot. Because at any point, if you don't have a raid group for your server, you need to be willing to look on other servers to find a raid group. So it becomes a very difficult life when you want a good raid group which is also full of nice people who don't just play the game once a week, because that's what raiding is. A lot of the times raiders, and I'm guilty of this, we log in, we do our raid, we're happy with it, we're like, oh yeah, sick loot, or man, that was awful loot this week. Then we go our separate ways. Maybe some of us continue to play or cap our tomestones, or some of us go and do other things in the game. But it's very rarely in the raiding community like really tight knit. There are times when that happens, but finding that group of people, it's not something you can force yourself to find. It kind of just happens. You know, it's a really difficult scenario to be in when you really want a good raid group, but you also want to have good friends. Because a lot of the times you find a group of people that are really cool, but there's always those 1 or 2 people that are like not performing very well, and they're like, oh my god, we wipe. Because this person's just like, oh, sorry, I was getting high. And it's like, dude, stop fucking smoking weed in the middle of the raid, man. That's not your excuse for not pressing Cure 2. Alright? Oh, sorry, I was token. I can't stand that shit. In case you can tell, it's literally like I won't raid with a group that has a guy that does that. So, there's always like one thing that throws it off, and then the group doesn't want to get rid of that guy because he's been around for so long. And it's just, there's always some sort of dramatic diversion to like the whole point of having fun. And that's why you're probably in a rough place. I mean, if anything, I'd focus on finding a group of people you enjoy playing with and stick with that regardless of skill, or you need to be on a server that like you can have a group of friends that you can talk with outside of raid, and then a raid group that gets the business done. So on that note, hopefully that answers your question, but you're going to be in a tough time, dude. I don't think you transfer too much. I think you've just gotten into what is raiding and what is looking for a good raid group. It requires a lot of transferring. So you've gotten to see it firsthand. Now it's your decision to see if you want to continue. All right, I think we have 2 questions left on the forums, and then I'll take a few from the live stream itself. So let's move on. Hey, Haps, how you doing? First time poster? What do you mean? Are you really? No, you have 2 posts. That's a damn lie. I see your account says 2 posts. I don't know where else you've probably just posted someplace else. I know who you are though, and I know your name. So first time poster, have a Nidhogg minion for 3.3, or you can combine with Sly and Ethos to make a giant mech. The Hap Sly F.7. It's the 0.3, man. Just saying. The take with you on raid night. Anyway, I've got a few quick questions for you. 1, what do you think Square Enix puts PvP and past armor sets in the gold saucer? Not the current stuff, but some of the older armors, and some of the PvP armor looks good glamour-wise. You know, I wonder how well that would do. Like, what if, you know, they were, like, for example, we're getting Diable Dreadworm in 3.3. A lot of people kind of overlook that, but we're getting Diable Dreadworm in 3.3, and you'll probably have to do Final Coil to get it. But with that in mind, there's still the Diable Allagan and Diable High Allagan. What if now that it's been a certain amount of time, they have this Make It Rain campaign going on, they want to make MGP worth a little bit more? What if they start throwing those items, like slowly but surely, into the gold saucer? Make them, that's not something that's not necessarily exclusively available to gold saucer. Make it an alternative to something else, like, oh, I want to get this body piece glamour, you know, it incentivizes me to go in there, maybe try some of the things, work on my challenge log, things like that. I mean, that could be an interesting way of going about it, just making it an option for some things as opposed to the sole means of obtaining certain items. I know that that could also work the other way around. Like, the problem is then what if they decide, hey, we'll take things from the gold saucer and make them available other places, then it takes away from the gold saucer. So it's a tough call. But I'm not opposed to that. PvP is a little bit strange though, because like PvP, the prices on those decline so rapidly, and you get so many marks from doing PvP. So I don't think that specifically PvP needs that, but I wouldn't be opposed to seeing that from other armor sets and whatnot. And my headset just turned off. That's always fun. So 2, if you were to buff the I-200 to I-210 steps of the anima, what would you do? My thing has always been, I would love to just see the amount of poetics, the amount of esoterics, the amount of beast tribe tokens you need just decline. That's it. Like, cut it in half, because if you cut the cost of the items in half, you're essentially cutting the amount of items you need in half. But the thing is, and I always forget this because I never use it for this purpose, some people, you can actually get, what, grade 5 carbonized matter with unidentified tokens. So the problem is, if you do that, then grade 5 tokens become more available, or grade 5 carbonized matter becomes more available. I don't know if that's necessarily a problem, though, because grade 5 materia is so common at this point. Like, everyone gets one a week. Some people get more because they go into the diadem and they do whatever the hell they're doing. So I don't know that that's really a problem. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see that as a real reason to not just cut the cost of the unidentified items in half. So that would be my thing, because it's the equivalent of cutting the amount of items you need in half without actually cutting the amount of items you need in half. And obviously the crafted pieces are a much bigger problem for people than the 80 items a lot of the time. So for those, you could throw those into the Aquapolis, you could throw those into maps, the HQ versions, you could throw those into pretty much anything and just make them have a cost. Maybe you make it so you can buy the items with Beast Tribe tokens, with Poetics, with Esoteric. So if you want to just take that route, you can buy those items, but they're going to cost like quite a few Esos, quite a few Poetics. So it basically kind of extends it, but makes it so that it's more accessible. My number one thing to recommend is people do the Beast Tribe quests. Sell the materia. I do 3 Beast Tribe quests. I make anywhere from 30 to 60k. If I do 12, just multiply that by 4. You know, I make anywhere from 60 to 240k a day on that alone. Like, if you just, I know that it's difficult because the Beast Tribe quest, if you didn't do them before, it's hard to convince someone to rank them up now, but they're buffing the rate at which you gain a Realm Reborn Beast Tribe reputation in 3.3. If you start on that now, you'll get a head start on actually getting your things to rank 3, and then you can start doing that. Just do 3 a day on rank 3, do 6 for one of the other ones, and then do 3 on a last one. You know what I'm saying? So you could have already had good progress. Putting it off until they buff it is not really a good plan, because you could have had it done already. You know what I'm saying? So it's a rough place, but that's what I would do. The Realm Reborn Beast Tribe reputation buff will kind of be a 200 to 210 step nerf, but it's still not going to convince a whole hell of a lot of people that they need to do it. And 3, since the Warrior of Light cleared out the Binding Coil, do you think the Garleans would go down for some Allegan tech, or just give up? I mean, the entire point is we shut down the coils, and we basically sealed it off so the Garleans couldn't get back in there. They were pretty much only scratching the surface in the first place, and we were basically the only ones who were able to get past the front door. You'd think that because we opened the front door, maybe they'd go in more, but it never happened that way. So, also, not everyone has cleared out the Binding Coil. Only certain characters have cleared out the Binding Coil. So for a lot of newer players, that doesn't make sense, because they've never gone into Coil, they've never even done first Coil. So it's not true for every character, so that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's canon to your individual character, but it's not canon to the world necessarily, if that makes sense. All right, and now we have the final question here on the forums, and we'll take a few from the live Twitch chat. So, hello, Mr. Happy. How are you enjoying the Gold Saucer this week? Phenomenally. I've gotten over 100,000 MGP. I'm getting very, very close to my Fenrir mount now, and I can actually make some progress towards getting my Adamantoise mount on top of that at this point. And the Make It Rain campaign overall, it's just been one of the better seasonal events. I mean, we still have the Yokai Watch event coming up in a little bit. I have a feeling that that's going to actually be a pretty high quality event as well. But this was a nice change of pace. I've been enjoying the Gold Saucer for the past week. So you have some questions for me. Fantastic. 1, in the trailer for 3.3, there's a reference to the Planet of the Dead. You're talking about the Palace of the Dead. That is a deep dungeon. It's a new type of dungeon coming in 3.35. It's basically a dungeon with, we don't know how many floors. Let's just pretend, let's just say it has 50 floors. It doesn't actually, but we'll use it as an example. It's a dungeon with 50 floors. Every floor is randomly generated. There's buffs and debuffs that can randomly apply. Focus. There are buffs and debuffs that can randomly apply to you or the enemy. All of your armor, your gear does nothing for you in there. You start at level 1 all over again when you're inside. You need to be at least level 17 to enter, and your goal is to go from the start of the dungeon to the end. You can go in solo and see how far you can make it solo. You can go in with 4 people and just worry about actually beating the dungeon itself. But it's supposed to be basically a randomly generated dungeon with its own separate set of progression that comes in between patches 3.3 and 3.4. So expect it to be early to mid-July, but that's what Palace of the Dead is. and it's looking. It looks better than I thought it would. I had a feeling it was gonna kind of look kind of dull, but when they showed it in the trailer, I got more excited for it. That is completely the opposite of the effect that Diadem had on me. When they showed Diadem in the trailer, I was like, this looks ridiculous. So I don't know how to feel about that. So then, question number 2. Is it expected to have a way to upgrade lore gear outside of Savage in 3.3? Yes. The Hunt will almost definitely get Illuminati Deep Gob Twines and Gob Coats, but probably not Gob Dips to actually get the weapon. So that will... actually, no, I take that back. Gob Dip is to actually get the weapon, which you can already do, and then Illuminati Gob... No, that's not right. I'm fucking so confused right now. I can't even remember the fucking upgrade stuff. You'll be able to upgrade your armor and your accessories. I don't expect for you to be able to upgrade your weapon to 240. That's what I was trying to say. That's what I was trying to say. You won't be able to upgrade your weapon to 240. Expect to be able to upgrade your armor and your ring and your accessories to 240 via the Hunt. And then on top of that, expect that there will probably be a weekly reward from Weeping City of Mach that will do the same thing, again, armor and accessories. But I don't expect you to be able to upgrade your weapons to 240. They have A7 Savage for that. They have, god damn, get in focus. They have, they'll definitely have the Hunt for the armor, and then for weapons, you'll have the animal weapon, you'll have the upgraded lore weapon, and then you'll have Nidhogg, who will be 235. So you know what I'm saying? I definitely don't think you'll be able to get your weapon to 240 though. And the next ones are unrelated to 14. Oh no, you had a third question here. The new gear for crafters is going to be Bible with red scripts. There's going to be 2 sets. There's going to be one that you could just flat out buy with red scripts, which isn't bad. It'll do its job. And then there's going to be ones that you can craft, very similar to the way we have it now, and you can put materia on those. And while those are a lower item level, with the melds, they're superior. So there's going to be, you're going to have options. You can either just buy the less effective gear with red scripts, but it's still very effective, or you could get the slightly better gear by crafting it and then melding it on top of that. Okay? So then we have a few unrelated ones, and because of the quality of the questions this week, I have no problem answering all of these. 1, have you played the original Ragnarok Online only on private servers? And private servers don't really do a game justice. I don't think I would have been able to stomach Ragnarok Online growing up, though. Not that there was something wrong with it, but after playing Final Fantasy XI, I think I, growing up, very specifically needed to play a game like Final Fantasy XI. Just because of it being Final Fantasy, I had a lot more ties to the franchise than I did with Ragnarok, and that's a big deal to me. I need a tie to a franchise for me to genuinely stay interested in a game, in an MMO. So, like Overwatch, for example, I love it. I've grown up with Blizzard products all my life, so even though it's not something that's related to other Blizzard products, it's a Blizzard product itself, which kind of makes it appeal to me. 2, outside of the fantasy sword and magic setting, have you ever played any other MMOs? I very briefly tried Star Wars. I did not like it. And then WildStar is more sci-fi than it is fantasy. And man, WildStar just makes me sad to talk about, because I wanted that game to be really good. And I don't necessarily think it's bad. It's just really hard. It's an IP that, again, nobody has any sort of preset connection to. It's a whole new world that isn't genuinely interesting. It goes for the whole humor thing, and the humor doesn't really stick. It's fun occasionally, and it's uplifting, but it's really, really hard to get stuck to that world. And on top of that, the abilities are just not satisfying to use, in my opinion. It's a lot of flash, but not a lot of function, and it's not terribly exciting. And after seeing NCSoft's Q1 of 2016 report for WildStar, if that game, I hate to say this, but if that game's not shut down by the end of the year, I will be shocked, because when they shut down City of Heroes, it was doing better than WildStar is now. So it's in a tight spot. If you haven't seen NCSoft's earnings, like, it's not good for WildStar. Like, everything else is massively overperforming it, and WildStar just continues to see decline. Even after free-to-play, like, it was not doing well. So, yeah, I mean, I have, but they just generally haven't done well. I guess that's the way I feel about it. 3, which one was your favorite Batman movie? So I actually haven't seen Batman vs Superman, so I can't comment on that. What I can say is every time I see Ben Affleck in the trailers, or anyone else talks about Ben Affleck, they say he's one of the best Batmen we've ever had. So I want to see it just to see Ben Affleck's performance, because I think I could at least tell you who's my favorite Batman in that case. I did not like Christian Bale as Batman. I feel like he was just completely, like, no one cared about him in the 3 Batman movies. It was all about the villains. Liam Neeson did a great job in the first one, even though he wasn't even present for most of the fucking movie. He was only present at the beginning and the end. Then you had the Joker, who Heath Ledger, God bless his soul and God rest his soul, he just killed that Joker part. And then you had Bane. Tom Hardy didn't really do too much, but it was very entertaining, and it definitely was better played. Even Catwoman was better played than friggin' Batman in the third movie. So if I had to pick one, having seen them all, I would probably go with Michael Keaton, even though he didn't do a very good job at actually playing Bruce Wayne. But yeah, I'd go with that. I really want to see Ben Affleck's performance, because I have a feeling I'll end up liking Ben Affleck's the most. But I would go with the Michael Keaton one. I don't necessarily like the old movies as much as I like the new ones, but I definitely like him as Batman. If I had to pick a favorite movie, it would probably be The Dark Knight, just because of Heath Ledger's Joker. He killed it in that movie, and that was definitely a favorite. So on that note, those are all the questions from the forums, but I am going to do a couple of questions from the live stream, just especially because like I was not a fan of some of the questions that we had this week. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't like some of the questions this week, and you know who you are. Just keep that in mind for next time. So I'm going to do a few of the questions live before we wrap this up, so let's get right to it. All right, so the first question we're going to take from the live stream comes from Heroes, and it's mostly in regards to Palace of the Dead being a new type of content. So what kind of new and innovative content would you like to see added to 14, but not the same as Diadem or Deep Dungeons? So that's a good question, because I feel like as gamers, we all say we want something new and different, but a lot of times new and different doesn't actually do well. I mean, that's why the two most successful MMOs on the market right now are two tab target MMOs, even though action MMOs have been coming out left, right, and center. You know what I'm saying? It's just that as much as people like to say, oh yeah, it's the same as World of Warcraft, whatever, it's still the single most successful formula for an MMO that's out there right now, so it's hard to deny it. And then a lot of the times within 14, we say we want something new, we want something unique. And a lot of people go back to say with Final Fantasy XI, oh, it was unique. Unique, the problem with unique is it doesn't necessarily mean it's enjoyable to a large amount of people. 1.0 was unique, and while there were definitely people who enjoyed 1.23, oh, you would say most people wouldn't touch that game with a 10-foot pole. Hell, 20-foot pole. 10,000-foot pole. So it's a really tough thing for me to try and come up with something I would like to see. One thing, so I mentioned this occasionally, you guys know that I have documents that literally talk about pieces of content that I would like to add to Final Fantasy XIV, and that's why I don't like the questions when I say like, oh, somebody, you know, when somebody says, oh, what do you think of this? Because it's like they're all ideas. We all have ideas. I don't expect anyone to care about my ideas more than anyone else's ideas, because they're all just ideas. None of us work on the game. And yes, sometimes feedback makes it into the game, but this isn't feedback. This is literally like trying to detail out something and then asking them to execute on it, which just never happens. I mean, that's so rare in MMOs. I don't want to say never, but like it's just something that's so unrealistic to expect. So new and innovative. I don't really think I have anything innovative. I just think I have ideas that aren't currently in the game. For example, one of the biggest things, and I sort of agree with this, is the use of the open world. The game is very instanced, and yes, we do have the hunts, and yes, we do have treasure maps, and those actually, I believe those do a decent job at making the world feel alive. Whenever I'm walking through an area and I see people doing maps, the world feels more alive to me. It feels like people are out trying to get things done. When I go to a hunt, and especially because between patches, when there's not a lot of rewards for the hunts, it's only a moderate number of people that show up to a lot of the S ranks and whatnot, the world feels more alive. I feel like they do accomplish it, as much as a lot of the times it's just Zerg fests. But you know what? That's going to happen. So I always wanted something different for open world. I always wanted the idea of something called ethereal fissures. And the idea of an ethereal fissure is it's something that's out in the open world. It's there. People can use them to spawn enemies. And when they spawn the enemy, it almost creates like a little sectioned off area that no one else can enter. And they have to complete like a boss fight while they're there. Think of it like a treasure map, but it's sectioned off. And you can only view from the outside. Because imagine if you're a new player and you see someone doing this ethereal fissure and they're fighting this boss, and the boss has its own mechanics. You can wipe to it. You have X amount of time to try and complete it, whatever. As a new player, that would excite me. I'd be like, whoa, what is that going on over there? Something I don't understand. It's almost like how you would feel as a new player seeing a group doing the hunt for the first time. This is more structured. This is something where you can go, yeah, this is what end game raid bosses are like, but they're out in the open world. You can't say that about hunts. And I would be okay with that. Something along those lines, where it's a fissure of ether, and the only way to stop it is to destroy whatever leaked out of the ground. So, but I don't want it to be something everyone can participate in. It's something that you go with 8 people knowing, hey, we are going to complete this as 8 people, and that is what the boss is designed for. Or you can have one designed for 4 people, or one's designed for solo, whatever. But I want more things like that. Things that when players see you doing it, they go, oh man, I want to do that when I get to max level. You know what I'm saying? So that's the big thing I think Final Fantasy XIV is missing. Something to get players excited about getting to a max level. They go through the story and that's their current incentive. Nothing else. So I would like to see more things like that. So, I mean, that's obviously not a super original idea, but it's something I would personally like to see. All right, next question. So, Mr. Happy, I was watching your Final Fantasy XI stream and saw that system that lets you take NPCs as allies with you. I thought that was really cool. So my question is, what's the chance we get that in 14? Whether new, unique NPCs or pre-existing ones? So we actually are getting something like that. It's supposed to be, I guess, in anticipation of us taking back Al Amigo, and it's Grand Company Mercenaries. And it's, I laugh because it's basically going to do what our Chocobos could never do, where you're going to be basically trying to raise the strength of your Grand Company's armies in anticipation of a war with Garlemald, because at this point, we have only defended our lands against Garlemald. In the case of reclaiming Al Amigo, that is Garlean-controlled land. This will be our first time, if we do this, venturing out and taking something back from the Garleans. So it's important that you're prepared war-wise to handle that. So it seems like that's the idea behind the Grand Company Mercenary system, and apparently that's also when we're supposed to be getting our higher ranks. And 3.4 is the expected release date for this mercenary system, so I don't expect it to be like you'll go out into the world and you'll level NPCs. They seem to want you to do this via dungeons and whatnot, so you'll basically have NPCs that you can do dungeons with, and the idea is supposed to be to help you if, you know, you're having a really hard time leveling. It's less efficient. It's designed to be less efficient than running with actual players, but it's a means of not only progressing yourself, but progressing these other characters as well. And it's very different, because the reason why Trust NPCs, which is the name of the Final Fantasy XI content, was added to 11 is because it was hard to find groups to get anything done, because the population has severely declined on that game on pretty much all servers except for Asura. Yes, there are people, but they're mostly spending their time at level 99 doing new content, or doing at least the max level content, and you don't see parties out in the world like you used to in Final Fantasy XI anymore. That's why Trust NPCs were added, was so that you had a reasonable means of leveling without needing actually other people. So it's not going to be implemented for that reason, but it's implemented to add this new sort of depth. And that's another new system that we don't have. I mean, the Chocobo leveling is one thing, but the idea of preparing our Grand Company for war, it almost kind of hints at new content we could be seeing in Al Amigo. Why would we do this? Like, story-wise, it makes sense. Why would we level them? Because we want them to be stronger when we go to war. But why do they need to be stronger if we're never going to see that strength actually play into anything in the expansion? So that what I'm hoping is that by powering up your Grand Company, it sort of gives your Grand Company an edge when you're fighting for things out in Al Amigo. Stronger NPCs maybe fighting, you know, trying to fight back for hamlets and things like that. And your presence can always maybe affect the way that your Grand Company fights for something. So I'm hoping that it evolves into that, which it could be, of course, another way we could incorporate open world content into the game without it being kind of stale open world content or camping type open world content. So I'm curious to see how it plays out, if they have long-term plans for that, or if it's literally just something that players can work on, like Deep Dungeon, which is literally has no effect on anything else. It's just something for you to do. Alright, so the next question we're going to take from the Twitch chat. Mr. Happy, given the longevity of games like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XI, which have been around for over 10 years, do you see yourself playing Final Fantasy XIV 6-7 years from now? So for me, it's hard. It's damn near impossible for me to call that. I mean, here's the thing. My experience with Final Fantasy XI, my experience with Final Fantasy XIV, my experience with World of Warcraft, my experience with every MMO has changed greatly in becoming a YouTube content creator and a Twitch broadcaster. And what I mean by that is when I played Final Fantasy XI as a kid, I didn't play it and I didn't create like a fan base off of it. I didn't create people watching me play it and feel the pressure that I needed to play it over and over again. World of Warcraft, same deal. When I play Final Fantasy XIV, you know, sometimes I don't want to play Final Fantasy XIV, and it's not because it's a bad game, but it's because, you know, maybe Overwatch just came out, maybe maybe they just re-released a previous Final Fantasy game, maybe some other new game just came out and it looks really cool, maybe like Fallout, like, oh man, Fallout just came out, I want to play that, I don't want to play Final Fantasy XIV right this second, every minute, every day. But when I'm a content creator and my channel was kind of built on Final Fantasy XIV, it's nerve-wracking to do that. It's nerve-wracking to think, oh my god, how many people are watching, you know, nobody's following, nobody's subbing, nobody's talking. It's when you create this expectation of yourself as a broadcaster, as a YouTube content creator, venturing out of your comfort zone is very, very hard. So Final Fantasy XIV, do I see myself playing it for 6-7 years? Yes, but my question to myself is, will I be playing it for the same reason why I played Final Fantasy XI for 7 years? Final Fantasy XI I played because I had friends that played it, and because it was my social experience as a kid. Like, that was my sole social experience. I did not have a whole lot of friends. I actually had a fair amount of friends in high school, but like throughout middle school and stuff like that, I had a few friends, but like most of my friends were online on Final Fantasy XI. It was a major social thing for me. Final Fantasy XIV now is not necessarily the same thing. It is if you think about it, because when I'm talking to people on stream and I'm talking to people in the game, it is a lot of the same experiences. It's just, it is now also the term with which I make a living. So what I'm hoping is I don't ever lose the passion for Final Fantasy XIV, because it's going to change the channel, it's going to change everything, and I have not yet lost that. I've enjoyed it even when it's in its lulls. I still find ways to log in and enjoy that game, even if it's just for an hour or two. I don't force myself to play it longer than that if I don't feel like I need to. So I'm confident that I will want to play it because Final Fantasy is just integrated into my head. I mean, you guys see, the games I have the most fun and the most passionate I'm playing are always Final Fantasy games. It's what I grew up on. That's why I played Final Fantasy XI for all those years also. So I'm really, really confident that yes, I will be playing Final Fantasy XIV 6-7 years from now. Both because you guys enjoy it and because I'm still enjoying it. You never know. They could do something that could completely ruin the game for me. They could. I mean, Diadem was not a good idea in the end. You know, Lords of Verminion was a waste of time. And Deep Dungeon, for all we know, could be a piece of shit. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to say it looks amazing. I'm going to say it looks interesting because we don't know anything yet. You know what I'm saying? So it's a tough call for me. I see myself playing it that long, but I just want to know why I'm playing it that long. That's why I want to ask myself that same question 7 years from now. Do you play 14 now because the people who started and supported your stream from the start, that's what they got into, or is it because I'm still interested in it? I want to ask myself that question 6 years from now. If I'm still doing this, I think I'll still be doing this, but we don't know how Twitch, YouTube's going to pan out over the next 6-7 years. So it's a tough question to answer properly. All right, and the final question that I'm going to answer for this week is a question that is sort of along the veins of the last one, but it's about, you know, the history of MMOs unfolding. So, Mr. Happy, what if Final Fantasy XI just never existed, right? It was never a thing, and then Final Fantasy XIV came out, but Final Fantasy XIV was the first MMO, and it was Final Fantasy XI. So it's a huge what if scenario, but I think I would play it as much as I do now. Because I just, when I first played 11, I loved every second of it. When I look back at it now, I realize that I mostly just played it because, again, it was a huge social thing for me. But we already established that I play Final Fantasy XIV, that's definitely got to be one of the reasons. Even if it's not why I think I'm playing it, psychologically speaking, I think it's got to be part of the reason, because I get to go online and I get to talk to you guys and I get to interact with you guys every week on the Monday video. So I have to think that even if Final Fantasy XIV was Final Fantasy XI, and I never had a Final Fantasy XI to go off of, like we couldn't even have the conversation about like, oh, you know, this was Final Fantasy XI, this, that, why don't they take this from 11 and do that, you know? I think I would probably just still be playing it because it would still be Final Fantasy. I would still use it as my means of creating a social life for myself even when I was younger, and I would probably still enjoy playing it as much as ever. I mean, I even played Final Fantasy XI last week, and while I didn't have a great time actually playing the game, going back and remembering things was more fun to me than actually playing Final Fantasy XI. In all honesty, like the play online music at the beginning of the stream was more exciting than the rest of the stream where I was actually playing Final Fantasy XI. So it's a very, very tough thing. I think it wouldn't change much. I think I'd still be playing it. I think I'm just so ingrained into, like, I mean, that's what I said. When I have a video, top 5 reasons I played Final Fantasy XIV, the number one reason was that I'm a Final Fantasy fanboy. I do not shy away from that because it is a fact, which is why when people ask me my opinion on Final Fantasy XIV versus other games, I tell them it's going to be biased. Like, you probably shouldn't listen to me, but here are my reasons. And that's why when people come into the stream and they ask, why is this game better than ESO? Why is this game better than WildStar? Why is it more successful? I go, you're going to get a biased opinion here, buddy. because that's who you're asking, people who like the game generally. It's really hard to give an honest answer when you're a fanboy. You know what I mean? It's just, it's a very tough scenario, but I think ultimately, even if Final Fantasy XIV was Final Fantasy XI and Final Fantasy XI never existed, I'd probably still be playing it, in all honesty. The question is, how many of you would be playing it? That's the real question, because I don't think the answer would be nearly as many as you may think it would be. So on that note, guys, I think that is going to be my wrap up for this show. Thank you everyone for joining me for another episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. We get the videos here again. There we go. Yeah, videos are right here somewhere. Kamehameha, Spirit Bomb, whatever it is that you think or that you want us. There's stuff here is all I'm trying to say pretty much. But on that note, I have something that I need to be doing in about 15 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to wrap up the live stream right after I finish this recording. So thank you for joining me. Remember, if you have questions for Mondays with Mr. Happy, the forums, the Dream Network forums under the YouTube video, that is where you go to ask them. And hopefully my feedback on the questions this week will influence the questions next week in some way, shape, or form. But anyway, thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. I'll see you next week. And until then, take care.